All right, I want to take this opportunity to talk about TypeScript because it's not the most clear when you're getting started. Interestingly, JavaScript is dynamically typed, which means you basically just pass in whatever you want to any variable, and it doesn't complain. And you can do a bunch of bullshit, and you can screw yourself over really easily. Whereas with TypeScript, if we look at one of these functions, so we have a type declared here, and if I were to remove the client ID from the type that we're passing in, oops, then it's going to throw a fit down here where I'm trying to use that value. So I just put it back, and then TypeScript is happy. In JavaScript, you don't get this. And that was sort of a conscious decision. I mean, Java is statically typed, JavaScript is dynamically typed, but a lot of the newer, kind of more popular languages like Rust and Go are statically typed. And so TypeScript is a great tool, but at the beginning, you don't really need it because you're not doing a ton of this complex kind of passing of data. You're probably just building a basic website or something, and that was one of the reasons that the designer of JavaScript, Brendan Eich, decided to make it a dynamically typed language because you can just throw things together and you can iterate really quickly. But at a certain point, you'll start to hit a problem where the TypeScript, either you're not using TypeScript and you start to need it, or you are using TypeScript and you're kind of ignoring it, but you start to hit these issues where things stop working and you're afraid to add on to your app, you're afraid to scale up your app, in terms of features or users or scope, and all of a sudden it becomes a giant problem. So I had this experience. This app that I've started building has kind of actually gotten big. And it used to be really simple. It was a dashboard, there was a few backend functions, and you could kind of just get things done. But if we look at our billing page on the dashboard route, so if we go billing, then we have this function here which is passing back our subscription plan information. And when I deployed this and I was testing it out with some edge cases, we didn't have these nullish coalescing operators here. And so the front end didn't know that these could be null, and then it was basically, we didn't have the optional null here. And so it wasn't rendering this out, and it was throwing an error on this page, or something bad was happening. And this is because I wasn't taking enough care. This is still not a perfect solution, right? We're passing back null. I guess this works, but what you really want to do, and what I've come to understand, is that you can't learn coding purely from AI. Even people who have been coding for 15 years before AI was a thing, they're not, masters of the language or of coding. And so you're not going to be, just starting out coding. And the fact of the matter is, you're going to, once you start to scale up a project, you're going to run into problems where you're afraid to change things because you don't have the right type checking in place to make sure you're not fucking yourself over. And you're just going to stop, And the only cure for that, is to come back, and it's better if you start from the start. Give yourself end-to-end type safety. Make sure that you have types throughout your whole application so you're not fucking yourself over at random points. So I just want to show you, this is one of my functions at the beginning when I started building this app. And we're using interfaces in this case, and I'm just learning kind of the difference between interfaces and types. But, it really is a skill issue. At the end of the day, if you don't know how to use the tools, you're going to think the tools suck and you're going to complain until you learn how to use the tools and you go, oh, I'm fucking stupid, dude. So what we have here is we have an interface. We have an interface company tokens that extends our base tokens. And in this one, location ID is undefined. And then we also have the code credentials or the refresh credentials, which are a type of base credentials, where we have refresh token, which is a string, or auth code never, and then the inverse up here. And this is a stupid way to do things. I mean, it works, but this is just an example of where you're kind of making things more complicated than they need to be. If you switch over to, instead of using an interface, to using a type, then you have a type credentials, this does the exact same thing as the other file, but what we're passing in is we're saying type credentials has these things. So it's either a user type is a company, the client secret, and then the client ID, and then we're giving we're saying it also has either an auth code, or this is the or operator, or a refresh token. So you could also do a union, which would basically say, and maybe I'm not using it correctly, but that would basically say you can have one or both of these things. But in this case, we're just saying we have one of these. So we either have an auth code or a refresh token in addition to this object up here. And if I had done my project from the start with full type checking, where when I'm passing stuff from the front end to the back end, or from the front end to the workflows or back end workflows, anything like that, I can get full type safety. And you owe that to yourself, because once you start getting to a larger application, you're going to wish you had type safety, because you're going to change things and you're not going to be comfortable that it's not going to break things. You know, imagine the days before TypeScript with vanilla JavaScript. TypeScript is actually a godsend. If it weren't for TypeScript, you know, I'm sure we'd be onto something like Go, or I don't know, something else, because these types, when things get really big and complicated, you can't just hold that in your RAM, you know? You're not just going to have a whole fucking application in your RAM and be like, oh, we're missing this parameter. You literally have to either write tests, or you have to like go into your app and test everything out manually, which blows, right? So it's much easier to have static analysis. I mean, static analysis is literally the greatest thing ever, you know? And you don't even have to have a mono repo. I have a workflow and then a front end folder here, and then between those I'm sharing my database schema, which is generated with this command from Supabase. And yeah, I mean, that's really all I wanted to say. Basically, I'm an idiot. Everyone who's commented on my videos and said, "Oh, you're just dumb," you were right. I am fucking dumb. Yeah, I mean, it's clearly a skill issue. When you don't do things well, or when you don't know how to use your tools, you're gonna run into problems. And let's see what this is. So, oh, wait. But either way, I'm gonna go through here and I'm gonna fix these TypeScript errors. I'm gonna make my application as robust as possible, because when it comes to adding features, this is one place that you can actually make a difference, is knowing that everything is going to work if you're not throwing static errors. You know, if you're free of static errors, then most likely your app's going to work pretty well. And if you don't have static error checking, it's going to be a dumpster fire. So anyways, thanks for watching.